All right, so today we're going deep into the Black Templars, those hardcore space marines from Warhammer 40K.
Yeah, definitely a fan favorite.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we're going to be using this awesome video breakdown by Arch, the 40K lore expert on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, Arch, his videos are great.
Totally. And, you were saying you're curious about those what-if scenarios.
Yeah, always.
So get ready, because we're going to try and put ourselves in their power armor, and imagine, like, leading a modern-day crusade.
That's a cool way to look at it. I like that.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. So first things first, where did these guys even come from? They seem pretty different from your average Space Marine chapter.
You'd be surprised to hear that they actually started out as part of the Imperial Fisks.
Really?
Yeah, another famous chapter.
Huh.
But even back then, they had a reputation for being, let's just say, a little more enthusiastic about close combat.
Aha, I can imagine.
And purging heretics.
Oh, yeah, of course, purging heretics a must.
Of course.
But what really set them on the path to becoming like the full-on Black Templars we know and love?
Well, a pivotal moment was the introduction of the Codex Astartes, the rule book for all Space Marine chapter.
Right.
It was created after the Horus Heresy, that brutal civil war, and it was meant to prevent future conflicts by breaking up the big legions into smaller chapters.
Yeah, divide and conquer makes sense. But I'm guessing the Black Templars weren't too happy about that whole breaking up the band thing.
You guessed it, Rogel Dorn, the Primarch of the Imperial Fists, absolutely hated the idea.
Oh, yeah, he was a very by-the-book kind of guy.
Yeah, he saw his legion as a family, and dividing them felt like a betrayal.
Oh.
But here's where things get interesting. Sigismund Dorn's most trusted captain actually defied him.
Well, hold on. He defied his Primarch. That's ballsy.
Yeah, that's Sigismund for you.
What made him do that?
So he received a prophecy, this vision of the future, telling him that he needed to stay by Dorn's side.
Oh, wow. So like divine intervention kind of stuff.
Exactly. And so when Dorn ordered him on a mission, Sigismund flat out refused.
I can't even imagine.
Dorn was completely oblivious to the prophecy. He was furious and basically exiled Sigismund
Oh, no.
by giving him command of a newly formed chapter, the Black Templars.
So that's how it all began.
That's the origin story.
Wow, talk about a dramatic start. So from the very beginning, they were kind of marked by this, sense of defiance, this going against the grain.
Exactly, and that sets the stage for everything that comes after.
Yeah, it's like baked into their DNA.
They inherited the Imperial Fist's martial prowess, but combined it with even more fervent zeal.
Right, because of that prophecy and everything.
Fueled by Sigismund's defiance and the prophecy that guided him, they became the ultimate crusaders, always looking for the Emperor's enemies.
Always on the hunt. So let's break down this whole crusading chapter thing. What does that even mean in the world of Warhammer 40K? Are they just wandering around picking fights?
Well, it's a bit more complex than that. They don't have a home planet like other chapters.
Oh, right. They're always on the move.
Yeah, imagine them living on these massive Gothic cathedrals that are also spaceships, constantly on the move, scouring the galaxy.
Oh, wow. So they're like spacefaring knights errant.
Exactly. They're looking for any sign of heresy or Xenos threats.
So it's like a never-ending road trip, but instead of sightseeing, it's purging heretics and fighting aliens.
Pretty much. You got it.
And that explains why they're so much bigger than the Codex Astartes allows. Talk about bending the rules. Do the higher-ups in the Imperium ever give them grief over that?
It's actually one of the most intriguing things about the Black Templars, their size. Some estimates put them at well over 6,000.
6,000? That's crazy. The Codex is 1,000, right?
A far cry from that 1,000 Space Marine limit. And you'd think the Inquisition would step in, but
You'd think so.
their effectiveness and just unwavering loyalty seem to buy them a lot of leeway.
It's like as long as they keep winning, nobody's going to question them.
It's like an unspoken agreement. You guys keep winning battles, and we'll look the other way when it comes to how many guys you have.
That's wild. Okay, so let's bring this back to the what if you love so much. Imagine a modern military force operating like the Black Templars, constantly deployed, recruiting on the fly, and answering only to their own internal code. Could that even work?
Logistically, it'd be a nightmare.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But it's a fascinating thought experiment. Think about the challenges, constant resupply, integrating recruits from all these different cultures, and having a command structure flexible enough to adapt to anything.
It would make the UN peacekeeping forces look like a well-oiled machine.
Right?
But who knows, maybe that kind of unorthodox approach would have its advantages in a world as unpredictable as ours.
We've hit on a crucial point. The Black Templars, they embody a kind of military and spiritual independence that's almost unimaginable in our world.
Yeah, it's really something else.
And that's part of what makes them so compelling.
Totally.
And that independence really shows in how they're organized.
Yeah, for sure.
You were saying they bend the rules?
Oh, they totally bend the rules.
Well, they pretty much throw the Codex Astartes right out when it comes to their structure.
So no neat 10-man squads or anything?
Nope.
And all those strictly defined roles. How'd they even work as a fighting force then?
They have a system that's super demanding,
I bet.
but also surprisingly adaptable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so new recruits, the neophytes,
Right, the newbies.
they get paired up with veteran warriors in a master-apprentice kind of deal.
Huh. Like a mentorship program?
Yeah, think of it like trial by fire boot camp, but with chain swords and bolters.
Oh, man. That's intense. Talk about a sink or swim training program. I bet the casualty rate's pretty high.
Oh, it definitely is. But the Black Templars believe that real strength, comes from a hardship and being constantly tested.
So push them to their limits and see who comes out the other side.
Exactly. They push their neophytes to the absolute limit, weed out the weak, and the survivors become these hardened warriors.
I can see how that would key to strong bond, like a brotherhood forged in blood and fire.
Exactly. It's like a brotherhood within a brotherhood.
Wow. And from those who survived that crazy training, that's where the Sword Brethren come from, right?
That's right, the elite of the Black Templars.
The best of the best.
These are veterans who've proven themselves in tons of battles, and they're like living examples of what the chapter stands for.
So they're the chapter's all-star team, the ones who inspire everyone else
Exact.
and lead by example.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned their adaptable command structure earlier.
Right. It all makes sense now.
It's pretty fascinating. Every sword brother is a potential leader,
Whoa, really?
ready to step up and take charge of a crusade or any mission.
That's so different from other chapters.
Yeah, they don't have that rigid hierarchy that some chapters have. It's more like a fluid system where they can react quickly to whatever's happening.
Now that's a what if I'd love to see play out in the real world. Imagine a military where every veteran is a potential officer,
That would be something else.
ready to take charge at a moment's notice.
It would definitely challenge our ideas about military hierarchy and leadership.
For sure. Could you imagine like a platoon sergeant suddenly taking command of a whole battalion?
Wow.
Just based on their experience and the trust of their comrades.
It would be chaos.
Absolute
But
chaos.
maybe a controlled chaos.
I like that, controlled chaos.
That could be surprisingly effective.
Especially in a world that's changing so fast.
Yeah, where you got to be able to adapt and think on your feet.
Exactly. It really shows you the strengths of a decentralized system
Right.
where leadership isn't about rank, but about experience and inspiring others.
And that's something the Black Templars have definitely mastered.
No doubt. Okay, but let's be real here. These guys are known for loving to get up close and personal with the enemy.
Oh, yeah.
Chainsword's power fist, the whole shebang.
That's their style.
Do they even use ranged weapons?
Oh, they've got all the standard Space Marine gear, but their doctrine is all about shock and awe tactics.
It makes sense.
Overwhelming the enemy with pure ferocity and close combat.
So it's like a wave of righteous fury crashing down on the enemy line.
You got it.
So not exactly the stand back and shoot kind of Space Marines. I guess that explains their love for the Land Raider Crusader,
Oh, yeah.
that armored transport you mentioned.
It's the perfect vehicle for how they fight heavily armored and made to get those Black Templars right into the thick of it.
It's like a tank that's also a battering ram,
Exactly.
smashing through defenses and unleashing a squad of power-armored fanatics.
Talk about shock and awe.
Okay, now I'm picturing the modern-day equivalent.
Let's hear it.
What if a Special Forces unit had a Land Raider Crusader?
Okay.
Forget stealth and being sneaky. It's all about making a grand entrance and just hitting the enemy with overwhelming force.
That would definitely turn some heads.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine like a modified APC bristling with guns and just roaring into a war zone.
Yeah, and deploying a squad of elite soldiers right into the heart of the enemy.
You would be a statement
A massive show of force.
designed to break their morale.
Total shock and awe. But wouldn't that make them a prime target for like anti-tank weapons or airstrikes?
It's a good point, and it highlights the difference between traditional and modern warfare.
Yeah, things have changed.
Brute force is still a factor, but technology has changed the game.
It's not just about having the biggest guns and the toughest armor anymore.
Right.
It's about adapting to a world where technology is everywhere.
Exactly. It's about figuring out how to combine the Black Templars' relentless spirit with the tools and tactics of modern warfare.
That's a challenge I bet they'd love.
Oh, for sure.
But before we get too lost in our what-ifs, we got to talk about the big question.
The big one.
Their religious fervor.
Right.
They seem to take their devotion to the Emperor to a whole other level.
It's one of the biggest debates about them.
Yeah,
Do they just see him as a great leader, or do they worship him like a god?
it's hard to say for sure.
The sources are open to interpretation.
Well, with their vows and rituals, their hatred of psychers, even how they decorate their armor with all those religious symbols, it's hard to argue against the god worshipper idea.
True, it's definitely a level of devotion you don't see in other chapters.
It's intense. And it makes you think, what would it take for a modern military force to have that kind of faith?
That kind of zealotry.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Imagine trying to create that belief in a world that's so secular and individualistic?
That's a good question to think about. What leader could inspire that kind of absolute devotion? It's worth pondering because the Black Templars, for all their flaws, they remind us of the power of belief.
Yeah, I see that.
The strength that comes from having a shared purpose, something bigger than yourself.
Higher calling.
Exactly, something that goes beyond what any one person wants.
And speaking of devotion, we can't forget about the Emperor's Champion. You know, that legendary warrior who embodies the Black Templars' fighting spirit.
This figure shrouded in mystery and steeped in tradition.
Totally. So imagine this, a massive battle is raging chaos everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And then from the ranks of the Black Templars, a single warrior emerges.
Like something out of a movie.
Clad in ancient armor, wielding a relic blade.
Epic.
And he challenges the enemy leader to single combat.
Talk about a showdown.
It's like something out of an epic poem. It's awesome, but it also raises some questions.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, how does this tradition fit into the whole Black Templar structure?
Right.
Is there only one Emperor's Champion for the whole chapter?
Yeah.
Or does every crusade get to choose their own?
That's part of the mystery surrounding them. The sources are a bit vague, which just adds to the whole mystique.
Yeah, it's like they want to keep some of their traditions secret.
Exactly. Makes them even more powerful.
Okay, but let's play. What if, again, how would this whole Emperor's Champion thing work in modern warfare? Would it even be possible in a world of drones and cyber warfare?
It's an interesting question. Will we be like a purely symbolic leader?
Yeah.
Someone who rallies the troops with their courage and charisma?
Yeah, or maybe.
Or could they be like a highly trained operative capable of taking out the enemy's leader even in a super high-tech world?
Maybe it's a bit of both, a symbol of strength and defiance, but also a skilled warrior who can turn the tide of battle with a single decisive act.
Someone who represents those old school values of honor and courage, but also has the tactical brilliance to navigate modern warfare.
It's really interesting to think about how that idea of individual heroism, so central to the Black Templars, could actually work in our world.
It's a good one to ponder.
All right, let's switch gears for a second. Talk about the guy who leads these zealots, High Marshal Helbrecht.
Oh, yeah, Helbrecht.
He seems like a force of nature, even for a Black Templar.
He really embodies the chapter's dedication and ruthlessness. He's known for leading these crazy long and brutal crusades.
Oh, yeah, like that 8-year campaign against the Fiends.
Talk about holding a grudge.
8 year, I can't even stick to a diet for 8 weeks. But it makes you wonder, could that kind of single-minded determination work in our world?
It's a tough one. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you've got that unwavering focus, the never giving up attitude, which can be super powerful.
Right.
But on the other hand, there's the risk of becoming too rigid, too obsessed with the goal, and losing sight of the bigger picture.
That makes sense. It's like that saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly.
Even the most noble crusade can go off the rails if it loses its adaptability.
And Helbrecht's story is kind of a cautionary tale as much as it's inspiring.
Oh, hell so.
He suffered a pretty big defeat against a Necron overlord named Imhotep.
Okay, back up for a second. Necron Overlord.
Yeah, think ancient Egyptian pharaoh, but robotic and with plans to conquer the galaxy.
Okay, Robot Pharaoh, that's pretty cool.
It's classic 40K.
Aha. All right, so what happened?
Well, this defeat, this loss of his arm, it really shook Helbrecht.
I bet.
He spent years on a penance crusade trying to redeem himself and find a way to overcome that failure.
It's interesting to see how even someone like Helbrecht, a symbol of strength, can be humbled,
Yeah.
and forced to confront his weaknesses.
It makes him a more interesting character, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Shows that even the most dedicated warriors, the truest believers, they can still have doubts and question themselves.
It makes him more human, I guess, even in the crazy world of Warhammer 40K.
Right, even among these superhuman warriors, there's still that human element.
That struggle and growth.
And that's really what makes the Black Templars so fascinating. They reflect our own desires for purpose, for belonging, for a cause to fight for.
To make a difference.
Their extremes might seem alien, but their motivations, they resonate with something deep down inside us.
So after this deep dive into the Black Templars, what have we learned? Well, it's more than just cool armor and epic battle.
For sure.
It's about the power of belief, the challenges of leadership, and the enduring appeal of dedication.
In a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain.
And maybe it's a challenge for all of us to think about.
Yeah.
What are we willing to fight for?
What ideals would drive us to those lengths?
And what are the dangers of that kind of unwavering commitment?
Great questions to ponder.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've reached the end of our crusade.
Time to rest and recharge.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Black Templars. We'll catch you next time for another adventure into the 41st millennium.
Until then, stay vigilant.